Hey there, good people. Welcome to another episode of the Finnovator with me, Stuart Bell, creator of the Practice Evolutions program, author of a bunch of books all about creating practice efficiency, and founder of Adari Coaching and Consulting. Today's episode is one I created a few years ago now, inspired by a gentleman who I think we all know pretty well, Elon Musk. Now, Elon is one of those people who I think the older he's got, the more he polarizes people. Some will tell you that they think he's the messiah of the planet and he's going to save all of us. And others will tell you they're not so keen of him. I recently went over to LA last year to stay with a couple of friends of mine. And one of my friends over there, Samuel, absolutely told me every reason why he didn't like him. He was absolutely adamant while I was over there. He didn't want me to hire a Tesla. And in respect for him and the fact that I was staying at his house, I didn't. But whatever you think of Elon Musk, whatever you think of what he's doing, whether you believe he has genuine intentions or whether you believe he is compromised in some way and just another Silicon Valley bro, there is one thing you have to admit, that the man knows how to get things done. To be honest, I wouldn't want to spend more than a very short period of time in his head because he never seems to stop. He runs SpaceX with the aim of getting a person on Mars. He's got Tesla, which is now certainly one of the most impactful electric car manufacturers around the world. He's now got Neuralink, where he's trying to embed a direct human-to-machine interface into the heads of people who may suffer from spinal injuries. Yeah, he's doing a lot. And this was inspired by a desire to look into some of the mechanisms by which he's able to achieve his productivity and ask this question, how he does this. And in truth, when you look into it, there are some very clear drivers around batching, around how he processes information, and even down to his attitudes towards getting things done, which are not just useful to know, but can absolutely be replicated. In the current climate, most practices are challenged by getting things done. But the truth is we all do have the same 24 hours in a day. And if Elon Musk can run 3 companies, admittedly, he probably has a few more resources than the average financial advisor out there. I think there is lessons to be learned. So I hope you enjoy this deep dive into some of the philosophies that underpin Elon Musk's approach to productivity, and hopefully you can take a few for yourself. If you are interested in more efficiency, effectiveness, systems, technology, team productivity, it's a huge part of what I do. And if you'd like to access more resources on this that you can utilize, I'd love you to be part of our Practice Success Best Practice portal. It's a free portal. It's chocked full of free resources, including a free training program called the Practice Success Training Course. You can join up for it simply by visiting our website, audere.com.au, looking for the free portal menu item, and then just jump in and go through the process, and you'll be on there in no time. So that's Practice Success. Let's dive in and talk a little bit about Mr. Musk and how he gets so much done. So let's talk about productivity, because as I said, in most of the 90-day plans we get in, there's always some sort of indication that one of the constraints that people have is around time. And we know that, if you're planning out what you want to achieve over the course of a 90-day period or a 12-month period or even longer, setting goals is important. It's really useful, but it's half of the equation. And the other half you've got to ask is, sure, I want to achieve X, Y, and Z, but what are the constraints, the things that are going to hold me back? And often, to be frank, actually, I won't be frank, I'll be Stuart, but anyway, often the things that are going to hold you back are more important to sort of head off before anything else. And I was thinking, you know what, if I wanted to know how to be more productive, I'd want to look at somebody who, hit some big goals. And looking around, one of the most, I guess the person that people always talk about as being an incredibly productive individual. I think some people describe him as robotic or a robot. He just gets so much done. Is this man, Elon Musk. 5 kids, 2, well now 3 companies in SpaceX, Tesla, and the Boring Company, as well as he's had a massive impact. People call him the modern day Iron Man. So, in putting together a webinar like this, I wanted to look deep and understand how he manages to get so much done and still spend time with his kids, still go home and play with his kids and be a gamer and all the rest of it. And the really big idea here is the question of is Elon Musk a genius? Is he a god? Is he a superhuman person? Or is it just he found a more efficient way of working? Now, it's interesting. I'm a big reader of Quora.com, which is question or an answer. It's a place where people can go and ask questions about a range of different things. And a lot of experts just come in and give answers. Elizabeth Clinton, Hillary Clinton has spent a lot of time on there. She often answers questions directly, not so much anymore. But it's really interesting the kind of responses you get. And one of the most memorable ones I saw was someone asked this question: how does Elon Musk? He has the same 24 hours in a day that we do, but he manages to get so much done. The name of the site is Quora, Quora.com, Elizabeth. And the answer that came back was so telling. It said, well, look, he gets stuff done pretty much the same way that most senior executives do. He gets stuff done because he tends to just compartmentalize. He tends to be really smart about the way he manages his time. And more importantly, he's learned to delegate. And even to a point where he delegates the delegation. Nina, yeah, it's quite insightful. Read his biography, quite insightful into the person he is. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that drives him personally, from his history, from his background. But he is an extremely interesting person. And frankly, even if he does end up going bankrupt at the end of the year, I think his legacy and the impact he's had is significant. But the question is it an inherent thing he's got, or is it just habits that he's adopted? And yeah, everything I've read about talent, about the way things are done, points to the fact that most of the time when we talk about people who do extraordinary things, it is mostly the habits they adopt. There's a bunch of books on this, but one of my favorites is Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. And he asked this question, is it really is greatness, grown or born? And the insight and the research and sort of the deep looking into this topic that he did indicated that really this kind of stuff or achieving amazing things is really about three main things. The first thing is about deep practice. And not just, on the surface doing things, not just reading, skimming through a webinar or reading through a paper, actually going deep and understanding the nuances and getting familiar with the way things that work. And we're going to talk a bit more about the importance of deep work in a minute. The second one was about ignition. In other words, being motivated by the outcome, being motivated about the process you're going to go through in order to stick with it when most people give up. And the final thing, which really shone through loud and clear in the research, was about mastering coaching. And what they meant by that is the ability to seek out other people or other bits of information rather than have to make it up yourself. Great book. And it really sort of, there's a number of different research pieces that have been done into this. But ultimately, what I want to put forward is the idea that, if we want to get into a flow state, if we want to get into that space where we're doing our very best work at all times, really, that means having the time to get things done. It means being clear on what needs to happen, and it means giving yourself the headspace. Now, the difference in time and headspace for me is about time, is about giving you the duration to get something. Headspace is about giving you the freedom to think in a certain way. Nina says, Tim Ferriss has an abundance of podcasts and book segments all about successful people and their routines. Yeah, there's definitely something to it. And I think his last book, which was way thick, was Tools of Titans, which I've got somewhere knocking around here. But again, a really good book that you can dive into, everyone from Arnold Schwarzenegger to Kevin Rose to a bunch of really successful people and a lot of people in the art space. But for me, it's about three things. It's not about getting increasingly more efficient, because I think efficiency for me has a limit, and I think it's about 10 to 20% extra output for being more efficient. For me, it's about elimination. The second bit is about isolation. And one of the challenges in the modern day, when we've got shared office spaces and technology, is we often don't have that opportunity to be alone and do great work. And the final thing is the focus, getting an understanding of what you need to look on. For me, if you don't get the isolation bit, you end up super distracted. And we're going to talk about that today. If you don't get the elimination thing, you end up overloaded and overwhelmed because you're trying to do more and more and more. And even though you're trying to do it in less time, it doesn't work. And finally, if you don't get a focus, this is the real one that I want to make sure we talk about today. You kind of have this bunny hop progress. You start, you stop, you start, you stop. And I think that's the hardest thing to do. So we're going to try and see if we can dive into this and solve some of these problems today. For me, I don't know about you, but when I'm unproductive, it kind of feels like I start off by setting some goals. And this is what I want to do. I work really, really hard, but at the end of it, I just don't get stuff done. You know what I mean? I feel like things are unfinished. And I'll be honest with you, when I'm not productive, I come to the end of it feeling cheated. I feel like I've put the work in. Why haven't I got the results? But when you get this stuff right, same process. You set the goals. You work really hard, but the difference is it all just comes together a lot faster. You just get stuff done, and the end result is you end up feeling like you not just you get stuff done, but you feel like you have the ability to grow your business, to move forward, to get the marketing done, and that confidence grows. So the framework I want to introduce you today, based on a lot of the insight or research I've done into looking at those who've written about Elon and Elon himself, is really, it's about 4 different things. The first stage of this is really, we're going to talk about your intention. In other words, what are the things that you've recognized already that are critical tasks that need to happen? If you don't get clear on this initial piece, you end up just going off course from the very start, if that makes sense. If you do get it right, you end up really targeted on the things that you need to do and the things that you really are outside your remit. Michelle, yeah, totally me. I'm finally starting to make some changes to how I approach things. The beginning bit is the same, Michelle. It's the set the goals, work really hard. It's the outcomes, and it's just by changing a few different things. So the first thing is intention. The second thing we're going to analyze today is manifestation. Now, what I mean by that is, you might intend to get stuff done, but if it's not happening, then we need to have a look and say, well, okay, that would indicate to me, and I'll share with you what Elon has to say about it. What is actually going on? What are you really focused on? The whole thing about, if you're riding a surfboard, if you want to change the direction of the surfboard, you have to look at where you want to go, not where you're actually going. So if your surfboard's not turning, we're going to have a look at where your head is. And that's what's today. We're going to say, if you're not getting stuff done, then let's have a look at what you're really focusing on. And we're going to ask some really hard questions about what is actually causing that deviation. And we'll talk more about that. If you get this right, if you don't get this right, you end up in denial, which is the worst possible thing. You kind of think, you know what? It'll be fine. And you just never get there and you get frustrated. If we do get this right, though, we end up accountable. And what I mean by that is we're accountable not just to most importantly to ourselves, because we start to understand our own behavior. And when you understand your own behavior, you can change it, but also to the rest of the team as well. The third stage we're going to work through is ideation. So once you've identified what's actually going on in the cause, we can start to think about how do we solve this problem? How do we break the circuit? And there's 3 stages to this, which include brainstorming, having a look at what's missing in your working week or on the way you're working, and finally, understanding the assumptions that underpin what you're doing. If you get this wrong, it kind of ends up being theory. If you get it right, you take action. And the final stage in this, the way we're going to approach this, is by really understanding what the solution is, making some changes, whether they're small, and ideally small to start with, but most importantly, getting clear about the payoff for you if you get it right. Because if you can see the link between what you're doing and the clear beneficial outcome, it's a lot more easy to motivate yourself. And I'm sure, Nina, Tim Ferriss talks a lot about this, about his 4 things you need to change, measurement being one of them, but the payoff at the end of it, or I think he calls it the public risk of humiliation. But if you get this wrong, you end up with a lot of good intentions. If you get it right, you get true evolution. You change from the way you used to do things, and it goes from being something you have to work hard to adopt, and then slowly but surely it just becomes the way you operate. So we're going to work through this. So I'm going to show you some examples. Jeff, welcome. People are streaming in, love it. Zoraida, I'm so glad you're here, by the way. I think you're going to get a lot out of this. This is a process that I think you can do whenever you start to get overwhelmed, but let's get stuck into it now with 5 key principles. I'm going to introduce you to what Mr. Musk has to say about this stuff. So, number 1, Elon talks a lot about the critical task first. And what he means by that is, let's look at, he's a guy who runs 3 companies, Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, I think is another one, but and also the Boring Company. Now, the one thing he talks about is focus. He talks about not wasting his time on stuff that actually doesn't make things better. So he has a really clear way of sort of eliminating the background noise and just focusing on the key things. One of the tasks, or one of the habits he talks about, is starting his day with the most critical work. One of the real habits that I find personally really works for me, and whenever I stop doing it, I kick myself and I come back to it, is I call it the trilogy, which is about before I do anything, either the night before or straight away when I get in the office, I don't open email. The first thing I do is ask myself the question, what are the most important 3 things that I want to reach the end of the day having ticked off? Some people call it finding your most important task, MIT. But it is all about what is the thing that's going to make the most impact. Not the responding to the email, which may be nagging in the background, or checking the bank account, or whatever it might be. The most important task that if you get through this early on, it's going to make a bigger difference. Some people work differently at different times, but personally, I think if you line up your most important, your critical task, your frog, whatever you call it, first off in the day, and you get that done, then it's incredibly useful. So in that interest of kind of keeping this really practical, I would love to know, just take a moment, jump into the spreadsheet where it says intent. What's your most critical tasks? And I want you to note down, what are your 5 most critical tasks in your business right now? In other words, the 5 things that you know, if you get this done, it's going to change the direction that you're headed. It's going to improve your profitability. It's going to give you more time. It's going to help you make your staff more productive. So this is where you grab the worksheet. I'm going to, in the background, I'm going to give you some that I've kind of noted out and let you know what I think it is. So you know what? Some of your most important tasks might be things like working on advice strategies, sitting down and doing the thinking on specific strategies for clients might be your most important task. It might be building repeatable processes. In other words, you find yourself, you're writing the same email over and over again, or you're sharing with the team how to do things, and you go, you know what? I should probably put this in a process so other people can start learning how to do it. Maybe your most important task is planning out the training of new software. You've got this new rollout coming, and you really should sit down and do the thinking about, okay, who am I going to have involved? When are we going to train them up? What are the most important functions to get our hands on? What do we need to go into the software? Maybe yours is developing strategic partnerships. You need to sit down and do a bit of research, find out who to approach them, and go and sit down with people who can add value to your clients and add value to your business. Maybe it's coaching team members. Maybe you've got some great people, but they just need to sit down with you and have a coaching session to learn how to do what you do or how to do it the way that you do it. Maybe it's rebuilding your advice templates. Maybe they suck. You need new ones. It might be creating marketing content. It might be seeing new clients. That might be your thing. It might be servicing your existing clients. It might be review meetings. It might be running a board of advice, developing a new specialization, finding a new practice manager, researching a brand new niche so you can really get some traction. Might be going paperless and really getting a handle on how to take your tech forward. It might be finally getting that legacy client base and transition them across. Maybe it's rolling out your brand new offer, or maybe it's something around working on your investment mandate. Is this useful? Hopefully. I'd love to know what Andrew, ahead of the game already. Your most important tasks are progressing 2 acquisitions to due diligence. Perfect. Systematizing the onboarding process and absolutely nailing your lead magnet. Super clear. Hey, if you're working through this, I would love if you'd share with me, as Andrew has. If it's just one, that's cool. If you've got more than one, share with me. But what is your most critical task right now? The thing that's going to move your business forward or change your world in such an important way that's going to enable you to move further towards the outcome you want, rather than sort of stuck in some of the constraints that you currently have. Pop it in the chat box when you know, and let me know. What is your most important, your critical task first? Thank you so much, Andrew, by the way. Get June 30th critical client business moving. Perfect. That's awesome. Build an efficient advice process. Nice, Nina. Nothing too small about that one, that's for sure. Perfect. So sitting down and spending some time. Look, on that one, if you can get specific about this, when you've got something that's big and amorphous, sometimes it can be hard to work out what your first step is. So yours might be, my most important task right here and now is to book out, 2 half days to sit down with a big whiteboard and work out where the problems are, grab some content, go back to Stu and say, have you got this? Have you got that? Cool. Everybody else would love to know. Jeffrey, Elizabeth, Cindy, Brett, would love to know, what's your most important task? As I said, there's 2 ways we can do this. You can sit back and kind of just fill in the worksheets, which is cool. Or maybe you can give me what your tasks are, give me some of your thinking, and I may even be able to sort of help out by providing a couple of suggestions when we get solutions bit. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Would love everybody to share with me what your most important critical task in your business is. In other words, what are the things that you 100% intend to get done in order to move things forward? Michelle, completing the due diligence document to move the SMA to a new provider. Perfect. Yeah, I was going to give you a call actually today to find out how that's going, so that's a big one for you. Okay, cool. So let's move on to the second bit, because that's the first bit. Zoraida, perfect. Complete work post reviews. 2, finish compliance exam. 3, website complete and go online. 4, complete June 30th work. 5, file uploads compliance. That's a lot. That's a lot of intentional stuff. So we may actually have to look at prioritize. Is that maybe in prioritization order? But you may have to hand some of that off. or, potentially find alternate ways of getting some help with that. Okay. So this is good. Thank you, Nina. Client calls, client servicing. Perfect. Again, as specific as you can be, helpful it will be. Okay, so let's move on, because the first thing is getting really, really clear. And if everybody's now clear about what their intention is, in other words, what the critical tasks are. Hey, you got kitty winkles. Say hello. Okay. We need, step 2 is around a feedback loop. Now, there's a great story about this. In 2004, Musk called a supplier to get the price of an electromagnetic connector for one of his rockets. And I think the supplier, thank you, baby, the supplier quoted him like 120 grand. And he looked at it and said, you know what? Let's unpack that. Let's understand whether that is actually the cost, or whether we can start to challenge some of the thinking around what this has happened. And he created kind of what we call is a feedback loop. He was always questioning, what's actually going on, and what are the causes of that. And as a result of that, he actually uncovered that the $120,000 bill he was being given for this rocket component, in actual fact, the total cost of the components was less than 2% of that. And that led him to a place where he actually went, you know what? The truth is, the reality of this situation is people are spending money building something which we could build themselves. And that sort of was one of the initial components where he identified, right, we're going to start building rockets. The point is if you're going through and accepting the status quo and not analyzing what's actually going on and trying to understand whether or not what's causing a rocket to be expensive, then potentially you're never going to get the opportunity to get really insightful progress that's going to enable you to do things differently. So I want you to right now question really strongly, when you look at your intent, what you should be doing, let's talk about what you actually are doing, and let's talk about what's causing that. So I want to ask you these questions and just have a think about this. What critical tasks in your business that you've just told me that need to get done are actually being prioritized? And if you're looking at that going, you know what, there's some stuff that's been hanging around for a bit. Maybe I've not quite got the due diligence document done, or maybe I'm not, finishing the compliance exam. I want to ask you what's being done instead. Instead of doing X, I'm actually focusing on doing Y. Now, there's no blame here, by the way. This isn't a blame thing. It's about unpacking the thinking. And the third thing I want us to do is, once we've identified that, instead of doing this stuff, we're doing that stuff, we're going to ask some questions about what's actually causing it. Now, on this topic, I just want to put something on the table. Recently, probably about 3 months ago, I read a book by this chap, Jocko Willink, who is about 6'10", maybe not 10. He weighs a lot, and he's a jiu-jitsu guy, but he's also an ex-Navy SEAL. And he wrote a great book called Extreme Ownership. The audiobook is fantastic because he just speaks so eloquently, but he speaks like a man who would run through a wall if need be. But Extreme Ownership is about his experiences in the SEALs. And he tells one particular story about being in Iraq, in a city, under siege, where they got isolated from their group. And a whole bunch of stuff went wrong. They nearly lost people. And he was asked to do a review of what went wrong. And he was trying to look around and going, well, they didn't do their job, and the Air Force didn't come in, and it was a bad luck. And he stopped for a second and went, no, I'm the leader. I'm the one who has to take it forward. And therefore, the only person to blame is me. I am responsible for it. And this is the point of his book. You must own everything in your world. There is no one else to blame. So the aim here is to understand that in order to make changes to the way you work, you have to take ownership of the fact that if you're not getting stuff done, there is something happening that's getting in the way. To do that, we need to analyze, what do I intend to do? What am I actually doing? And what's actually causing that? Because once you understand the cause, you can start to understand whether or not it's something that you can or can't change, or if you can change it, what you need to do next. Let me give you some examples. Again, this is one where you can grab the sheets and work with me. If I identify that I want to be working on advice strategies, maybe the thing that I'm actually doing instead is chasing up clients to return me information. If I'm aiming to build repeatable processes, maybe what I'm actually ending up doing is getting ready for an audit. Maybe instead of planning the software, I'm trying to get the team to use the damn software. If I'm developing strategic partnerships, or if I should be intending to, maybe what I'm doing is spending all my time, not being able to have really great first appointments, or assigning tasks to the team instead of coaching them. Maybe I'm manually correcting SOAs instead of rebuilding advice templates. Maybe instead of creating marketing content, I'm spending all my time answering emails. Maybe instead of working on seeing new clients, I'm putting out spot fires or cold calling or worrying about retention problems or creating SOAs, checking SOAs for errors by the team. Or maybe I'm, instead of, developing a new specialization, I'm just kind of doing the same thing every day by a different name. Or instead of finding a new practice manager, I'm trying to cover staff's work. Or, on hold, doing paperwork, client queries, scanning old files instead of being paperless, traveling around to client meetings instead of transitioning clients. Instead of rolling out the new offer, I'm sort of checking FDS and manually servicing clients. Or maybe instead of working on my investment mandate, I'm manually rebalancing. Now, for some of you, you might be on the gun. You're going, you know what, I'm doing exactly what I should be doing, in which case, great. This is a great way of checking that you are being productive. Is this useful? So just take a moment to sort of note down when you look at the things you need to get done. If they're getting done, then give yourself a big pat on the back. If they're not getting done, then there's something that you didn't intend to be a priority, which is essentially eating up your time. And again, this isn't about turning around and saying, you're wrong, or no problem, Justin. You're wrong, or you're bad at working, but it is about getting clear on what's getting in the way and then asking some real questions as to whether this is something we can solve. Make sense? And then I want to get clear as well while you're doing this. I'll give you a moment. But what's the cause? So there's stuff you intend to do and there's stuff that's actually happening. And hopefully that list has helped. But what's the cause? So you know what? If the intent is to work on advice strategies, but what you're actually doing is chasing up clients to return information, maybe if we dive deep, the cause is, you know what, I'm actually not getting things started quickly enough. So by the time I chase clients up, the kind of energy levels have dropped. They're not as motivated. If your aim is to build repeatable processes, but you're getting ready for an audit, maybe the problem is from the very start is that the stuff you need for the audit isn't part of your process. If you're planning the training of new software, the intent is to plan the training of new software, but you're trying to get the team to use this software, maybe the truth is you're trying to do too many things at once. You're trying to roll out all of the software instead of just bits of it. If the intent is strategic partnerships, but you're getting unsuccessful first appointments, maybe the problem is that you don't actually have any content to market to your partners, and therefore they don't actually know who you need. If you're coaching team members and the reality is you're assigning tasks to them, maybe you're not organized enough to delegate. Maybe you don't know how to make your advice templates more efficient. Maybe the problem with creating marketing content is you're always distracted. There's not enough focus on anything. If you're putting out spot fires instead of seeing new clients, maybe the problem is you don't have leads or you're not prioritizing lead generation. If you're servicing existing clients is an intent, but you end up cold calling, maybe it's the fact that your current business isn't profitable enough to you to actually to get to be able to focus on those existing clients. You with me so far? Michelle, that's perfect. My key is to eliminate multitasking, block and protect my time. Focus makes me more productive. You're going to love this next bit. Again, if you can go through review meetings, if you're worrying about retention instead of review meetings, maybe it's the fact that clients aren't engaged. You need to explain your process better. Focus makes me more productive too. Running a board of advice is the intent. Checking SOAs, you're still doing it the same way. A whole bunch of stuff that we could look at. I won't run through all of it, but getting really clear about what's actually going on. I know I'm not doing that. I'm doing other stuff. So what's causing me to focus on that rather than the other stuff? Is this useful? Let me know if you've identified already, the main thing that's holding you back and what's causing it. Michelle, that's perfect. Yeah, often it is about focus and time. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. Thanks. Cool. Would love to hear from other people, whether you're getting any insights. All progress, they say, begins with telling the truth. And this is all about, as Jocko said, extreme accountability. Ultimately, yes, there's a bunch of stuff going on out there. It's super busy. There's clients left, right, and center. We might have to get on the front foot. We've got stuff coming at left, right, and center. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this is about you doing the great work that you're good at and building the business that you want and understanding what's going to stop you from doing that. And hopefully getting clear about not just what it is, but the cause. We can start to act on it. And maybe some of it we can't act on, but we can work towards it. Cool. Yeah. Do you know what? That is a big one, Brett. Perfectionism. Yeah. So we're going to talk about, thank you so much for sharing. I myself am a recovering perfectionist. I find myself going back into it. But the bottom line is when you start getting stuff out, I had this conversation just yesterday with Rachel about some content, marketing content, and she's focusing on this one little sentence. And I was like, you know what? If you publish that, the wording might not be completely right. But you know what? Once it's out there, we're going to find out whether it works. And if it starts to work, you won't even think about that sentence ever again. Cool. Again, would love to hear from others if you're there and you had a bit of insight. If you want me to give you a bit more time, let me know. So right, it's exams and compliance audit sprung in April, May. I've given licensee feedback. Perfect. Yeah, they sprung it on you. That was the cause. And as a result, it's pushed you off your schedule. Good feedback as well. I can understand why that would be annoying. And anyway, let's not have a conversation about licensee requirements and what's going on right now. Let's just say they're a little bit worried about a few things. Cool. Am I okay to move on? I've got Brett on board. Michelle's working through it. Zaraida's giving me some great feedback. Justin has got a client that's arrived. Jeffrey, you give me a bit. Is everybody cool if we keep going? As I said, I would love to get some feedback. Perfect. Okay. But I get that people don't always want to type in everything. Keep going. Perfect. Okay. So let's talk about, once we've identified that, we've got what I intended to do, what I know I need to do, because everybody here is smart. They're focused. What's actually going on and what's causing it. Now we need a solution. And I want to introduce you to something called BSI, which stands for batching, scheduling, and isolation. And one of the key things that just comes out time and time again whenever you look at Elon Musk and his work habits is that he is incredibly structured in the way that he plans his work, in the way that he does what he does, and the way that he actually makes sure on his focus. So batching or multitasking is an area that he has a lot to say. Now, as you would know, Michelle, multitasking, as we talk about, splitting from 2 or 3 different things at the same time, it doesn't work. But the way that it works for him is he seems to combine multiple tasks that can be done together effectively. Things like taking meetings over lunch. He talks about emailing while actually reviewing spreadsheets. Outlining all your blog posts for the upcoming week in one setting. Processing all your emails at once. Getting on top of your Slack, your phone calls, doing all your communications, blocking up your email communication into one piece. Updating several worksheets at the same time, or finding more activities that you can put down together. Working on advice documents together. In other words, it's about putting similar tasks together and working on those tasks in one block while you're in a certain mindset. If we think about the full spectrum of what you as advisors have to do, you've got everything from the emotional side of dealing with clients, working with staff, down to the deep analytical work around sitting down and creating great advice, or working on business strategy. To combine those two things, you're flicking in and out of 2 very different mindsets, and I think that's a challenge. Let's talk about scheduling as well, the second part of it. We know that Musk, I think if you look at his work schedule, he spends Monday and Thursday at SpaceX in LA, Tuesday and Wednesday at the Tesla in the Bay Area, and then splits Friday between both. His assistant apparently has his planner broken down to 5-minute slots, and there's a long line of people trying to get hold of him for that time. Batching similar tasks is a great idea. Yeah. Efficient scheduling is it comes out in a lot of what Tim Ferriss talks about. It's a consistent theme in a lot of successful people's work schedules. And the final one is isolation. We kind of touched on it there, which is if you have important work to done, isolating you so you're unavailable. Let's just dive deep into this, because there is a lot of content on the members site around various different areas. And I'm happy to, if you get to the end of it and say, this is the area that I need most help with, let me know, because I will point you in the direction of some stuff that is very useful. Stuff like the anticipated year, or the pit crew planner, or the activity audit. Really useful things for getting you clear. Some of the best stuff I think we've got on the program. Let's talk about the number one thing, which is this email problem. One of the problems with being a senior person running a business and doing the work we do is if we have to manage email as well, really it's all about the problem that, in your inbox is a bunch of people who want you to do what they want you to do, if that makes sense. But the problem is the things that you need to do are different. Often what you need to focus on is building systems, working with the team so they can deal with the stuff that's in your inbox. But if you're going across and dealing with just the inbox stuff, right, you're essentially in the boot of your car, of a car being driven by other people's intentions. A lot of different views on how to manage email. There's zero inbox. But my view is you should only, if you want to get super efficient, be checking email maybe 3 times a day. This is about batching, and it's about isolation. Tim Ferriss talks a lot about how to manage this, but some people come in and they'll spend 7 a.m. in the morning, they'll answer the emails from the previous night. If you then keep on email from that point onwards, guess what's going to happen? Stuff's going to come in and you're just going to respond to it. A lot of people talk about first thing in the morning, then about 10:30, then probably in the afternoon. Some people like to do it a bit later. But I think email is one of those areas that we need to talk about the fact that it is not the most efficient means of doing it. Here's another thing, tip for you, and I'm going to drop some sort of tech on the table. If you have long form responses that you need to make, whether that's to team members, to clients, to other people, your other partners, you know what? Writing it down is, I think, a bad idea. Most people can type at about 40 words a minute, but speak at 200. We use Voxer in our business, little walkie-talkie. And if there's anything particularly long-winded, if I need to explain how to do something, or I need to, talk about multiple tasks that need to happen, I will drop Rose or Rachel a Vox, which basically sends a URL into their phone or to their email, which they can click on and listen. The benefit of this is not only am I getting the information out quickly, but I'm giving it to them in a format, which is they can listen to over and over again. They can review it and get it when they're ready to listen to it. But most importantly, I can put a level of detail in there that I'd never be able to. Email is not helping anyone when it comes to productivity. And if you can get other people to manage your email, I think that's the best outcome of all. I think we're getting to a point now, particularly with larger businesses, where if you do not have a shared inbox system, you do not have a central inbox for everybody's emails to go, everybody from your advisors to your support staff, to your help, your admin and support, going into a central inbox and then being managed either via templates or put out to different people, then you're reaching a point where your communication is rapidly falling behind. If you wanted to look at tools to do this, I'll give you a couple. We use Missive, Missive. We use that one because it's relatively low cost, but it does everything we need to do. Another one called Intercom, Intercom, is another great inbox. But there are a host of other ones such as Front, as well as ticketing systems. But the bottom line is, if you're spending too much time in email, it's going to kill your productivity. I think I read a report not that long ago which said the average senior executive at a large business spends between 2 to 5 hours a day in email. That's insane. That is absolutely crazy. So email. And by the way, don't check it on weekends. If you check it on weekends, you're going to get the habit of people emailing you back. The problem with emails is every time you respond to one, you get more back. Let's talk about the second area about productivity, which is around scheduling. And, calendar is totally king. Often when I sit down with a business and they're not getting the results, they're not getting leads, it's just not working for them, I'll ask them to open their calendar. I've done this a few times. Send me your last 3 weeks worth of calendar. And what I tend to find 9 times out of 10 is whatever is in your calendar will typically dictate the outcomes you're going to get. So if you're on a marketing footing and there's no time set aside for strategic partnerships or working with the team on marketing content or anything like that, there's a good chance I can spot straight away what your problem is. This is actually a screenshot of my calendar. I've modified a couple of the words, but I, at the beginning of every year, go through and I plan out, how many working days have I got in each month? How many days do I need for working with clients? How many days do I need for building the business? How many days do I need for doing good planning? How many days do I need for working on the growth? And then I block those out in advance, my whole diary for the year ahead. There's a module on the site called the Anticipated Year. But some of the things I'd say, block out time. Your planning days. I have big letters, no bookings. This is busy time. This is for Nina or Rose or whoever's looking to book things in my diary. Things like coaching your team, producing advice, planning the week ahead, strategic check-ins, talking to the team about the projects you're running. That's the kind of stuff I'd be blocking out well in advance. Client days, I tend to have them as free time. So if you go into Calendly or any calendar booking, this will come up as an option. You can go and book time, as well as the team know they can book all sorts of things in there as well. Building the business day for me is about things like sitting down and building processes, creating marketing campaigns, producing content, filming videos, going out and approaching partners, planning on new technology, and also growth days. I have stuff which is selective booking, stuff around meeting new partners, training teams. This, if you get into the habit of doing this, will completely change the way that not only you manage your time, but also, more importantly, your team actually book things. Let's keep going. Another tactic around batching, scheduling, and what's the other one? Isolation is, frankly, the best thing is to be really hard to distract. One of the problems with ongoing communication or instant communication, one of the problems with working in a shared office is it's really friggin' simple to reach across to somebody and go, hey, can I bother you? If anybody's played sport here, or even artists, they'll know, or programmers will know, there's a thing called flow. To do great deep work requires you to get into a mindset where you are focused on what you're doing. And the problem is it takes between 10 to 30 minutes to get into that focused state. You know what I'm talking about, right? When you're sitting down working on a client's plan and it just comes easy. If you're interrupted at any point, if your attention is put elsewhere, you've got another 10 to 30 minutes before you get there. Now, obviously, sometimes, there is a lot of temptation. You've got your notifications popping up left, right, and center, but there are a load of apps. If you're app inclined and you find this hard, which can help you get there. Stuff like Escape, a rescue time, which is a little thing that sits in the background on your computer to kind of tell you where you're actually spending your time. There is Flow State, which I think, from memory, it is a app which if you stop typing for a period of time, it deletes all your work. I know, it sounds crazy, doesn't it? There is Freedom, which is another app there. There is that one there, which I'm not going to say, but go do some what work, which constantly reminds you when you go to other websites that you're not supposed to be there. Even if you didn't mean to. There are books on this, Deep Work. And The One Thing is a great one, which talks about studies into people who just focus, not on 3 projects, not on 4 projects, not on 6 projects, but just one thing, as well as things like format, etc. I'm happy to, I know it's a bit blurred here. I'm happy to shoot you through some information, but if you really struggle with getting distracted, if this is something you really find hard, then there are a bunch of people out there who recognize that tech is a problem. And there's things there where you can literally shut down access to the internet, to social media, to whatever you need, or either get clear about what you're doing and understand the importance of it. But I guess the next thing is I think it's really important that we all become harder to reach at those points when we got good work to do. If that means turning off your notifications, your push notifications that say, hey, you got an email, all of that sort of stuff, then do it. But I think the easiest way is, not many people know about this, but if you've got an iPhone, there's this little button on it called Do Not Disturb. A lot of people put it on at night, but it's actually pretty clever. What it does is it means that it will divert all phone calls and notifications away from your phone unless someone phones you twice in the space of, I think it's 2 minutes, in which case it will let it through because it assumes it's an emergency. But frankly, if you've got work to do, like working on strategies, creating a plan, marketing content, only take with you. By the way, environment's really big as well. If you've got a place that you write well, or you've got a place that you work well, such as home, and you can book in advance this time and spend that time there, don't go there and turn on your notifications. Take only what you need. If you're going to write content, you probably don't need the internet. If you are going to go work on an advice strategy, you probably don't need your phone. Take only what you absolutely need. So hopefully that was useful. But the big things that Elon talks about is batching, scheduling well in advance, and really isolating himself, making himself harder to reach. Let's keep going. Hopefully this has been useful. The fourth thing I really got from sort of what Elon does is he has this habit of really questioning everything. One of his productivity principles is he goes to principles first. He analyzes and tries to understand what are the only principles that he can rely on. And again, the process or the part of this, whenever in terms of productivity, is really looking at this as a process of starting by saying, you know what? Because I'm not as productive as I could be, I must be doing something wrong. And really diving deep to try and understand what are the assumptions I have about the way I'm working? What are the assumptions I have about what's needed in my business? What are the assumptions, the underlying subconscious beliefs I have about the way clients must be serviced that are causing me to not do the work that logical me thinks is important? And again, I want to push back to this thing. If you're not getting the results you want in your business, this isn't about blame, but it is about ownership. It's about recognizing that you have the ability to build a great advice business and to change things because you're an entrepreneur. That's why you became an entrepreneur. But the first thing you need to do is take ownership and say, you know what? The only person responsible for my team not operating this way or the business not going that way is me. I have the power to change it, and I can and I can make it happen. If we talk about, there's probably 7 deadly habits. If we actually dive under the bonnet and we get really, really truthful and we go, what's actually going on here? And Brett, you sort of touched on this. The first one is, I think, aimlessness. It's kind of coming in and not focusing on any one thing and kind of just, weaving through the day or the week because you kind of just wait for things to pop up. The second one is distraction. We've spoken a lot about that. Multitasking, I think, is another real habit that people have, simply because technology is in front of them. One of the good bits of advice I was given, I don't follow it all the time, is don't sit at your computer first thing in the morning. Sit down somewhere else, or you plan out your day and decide what the most important things are. Read. Perfectionism, in other words, waiting too long, spending 80% of your time getting the 20% right. Procrastination, seeking more information for things. You know what, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'm not quite ready. Kind of related to the first one. Burnout, hugely important. We should stop talking about time management and start talking about energy management. Because let's be honest, we've got our own businesses. We're pretty much always on at one point or another. If you don't have downtime, not only will your energy drop, you might even get sick, but more importantly, your enthusiasm for things drops. And finally, sloth. And what I mean by this is not dropping out of your business to do things like exercise and taking care of you physically. And I think most of us have been in a situation where we've realized that we've probably invested too much in the work side of things and not enough in the going out and taking care of this body of ours. So what's the opposite? Well, the opposite of aimlessness or the solution is plan things ahead. Really get clear about what you're going to work on, schedule things, knock it in the diary, be clear about the task. Distraction, the solution there is isolation. If you are a distracted kind of person, then isolation, maybe it's one day out a week, or maybe it's, working from home or turning your notifications off. Multitasking, it's about that focus time. It's about working on less. Perfectionism is about practicality. It's about not what's the perfect solution, but what's the simplest, least complex and fastest thing I can do to get this solved, even if it's only 80% solved. Procrastination, solution to that is just do something. Make a step forward. Works for clients too. The solution for burnout is downtime, really being accountable for booking time, a whole day out, in the middle of the week, once a month, twice a month, and just go, this is my recharge day. And don't feel guilty about it. Don't take your phone with you. And the answer to sloth is balance. If you are generally not taking care of the other side of your life, then again, book it in the diary, schedule it out. So, really personal question, but I'd love to know. What is out of all of those things we've just spoken about, I'll point them out again. Aimless, distraction, multitasking, perfectionism, procrastination, burnout, and sloth. What's your big personal one? If there is any particular one that you think right now you probably are guilty of. I think, Brett, you already said perfectionism, which is a very common one. What else? I'd love to know what yours is. If you're willing to share. I know it's a personal thing, so you don't have to. Would love to know. Multitasking, yes. People that have got a lot going on upstairs and think really fast. It's one of the challenges of having a brain that sort of operates very quickly. Multitasking is a challenge. Okay, love to know. Multitasking and a perfectionist. Perfectionism is, if you're releasing something that you're not a little bit concerned that it's not ready, you're probably waiting too long. Okay, let's move on because there's time. One of the little habits that I think is really useful when it comes to this kind of questioning is the habit of previewing and reviewing. So we've already talked about, spending 5 minutes every morning. A most important task. What's your 3 things that you want to get done? But also taking some time out to review everything as you go will give you that insight. The number one area I'd focus on doing this is client engagements are a really good opportunity to hone your skills. And this little habit alone will move you forward very quickly, which is, I've just had a client engagement, or I've just sat down with a team, or we've just, had a sprint. What went really well? What do we nail? So you can positively reinforce. What didn't go so well? In other words, what didn't work the way it meant? And what am I going to focus on fixing? The one thing I'm going to focus on fixing next time. I guarantee if you implement that personal review moment with your team or with yourself, you'll get rapid. No problem, Jeff. Man, I'm glad you enjoyed it. You'll get rapid improvement. What did I do well? What sucked? What didn't go so well? And what's the single part of that I'm going to fix next time? Okay, so let's work through the sheet here because I want to take these concepts and put them into play now. We're on sheet 2, which is the circuit breaker, because now we know what we intend to do. We know what we're actually doing. We know the cause. We need to come up with a solution. So first thing, I want you to brainstorm. I'm going to brainstorm a couple and give you some examples. I'm happy to take any questions you've got coming up about this. So let's say I picked out one of my big ones, and you don't want to do all of them. You just want kind of the big ones. Let's say the truth is that the big problem I've got is I'm not getting things started quickly enough. Well, what are some solutions that I could put in place to solve that problem? Well, I could say, you know what? One of the solutions is to automate an instant follow-up sequence. So in other words, I've got 5 or 6 emails that go out, or 5 or 6 tasks that go straight over to my team, that they know they get on the front foot, they book this, they send out that, they follow them up. And I could use Rev to shoot out a file note straight away. 30 minutes, within the first 30 minutes of me finish the appointment, telling people what I need to happen, and we get on the front foot and we really provide momentum for clients so they don't have to wait a week. They don't have to forget why we're doing this. Within like an hour, they've got their first step. I could appoint a dedicated implementation person and go, Rachel, you are responsible for making sure that the moment clients say yes and they come on board, we shoot into action like a well-oiled machine, and we don't let anybody get behind. Or, I could just up my first appointment game. I could realize that I'm not having clients walk out of that appointment with a yes and agreeing to get started. And I could have a little bit more hand-holding, certainly in that first couple of weeks. So they go from, I don't know what's happening next, to I totally know what's going next. There's a couple of solutions brainstormed. What else could I do? Let's say my problem was, I'm always distracted, not enough focus. Well, maybe I could, you know what? I'm going to take one day out of the office, not going to take my phone with me. Maybe I'm going to have a block out, do not disturb days. Put it in my diary, put a sign on my door, do not come in. Or frankly, maybe I'm going to stop checking my email incessantly. Maybe the third one is, maybe the truth is the big solution, the problem is my current business isn't profitable. So I'm constantly having to focus on chasing new business and not building the business I want. Maybe the solution is I just need to stop undercharging. Maybe it's do a pricing transition and lose 20% of my client base. So I get a day back a week. And maybe the problem is I need to go through and implement the profit first system. So instead of managing my business according to the bank balance, I'm putting things into buckets the way I would with clients. Is it making sense? So once I've got that, I've got some solutions, but I probably need to ask some questions around what's missing. If I'm not getting things started, what's missing that might be causing that problem? Well, maybe the answer is I don't have a well-trained team who actually knows how to get things done. It might be that I don't have a workflow system. So there's no way of assigning 5 or 6 tasks because I don't have it working. Maybe the problem is I don't have any motivated clients. They're not motivated to work with me, and I don't have a way of motivating them to act soon. If my problem is I'm always distracted, maybe it's I don't have the ability to say no, and I need to work on that. Maybe it's I don't have a shared inbox, so everything's coming to me. Maybe the real thing I'm missing is I don't have an environment around me that's conducive to work. I've got an open plan office with a dump truck reversing over the road, whatever it might be. If my current business isn't profitable, what am I missing that would help me do that? It might be I don't have a fee schedule. I don't have a set fee that I know me and the team need to charge. I don't have a pipeline tracking tool. So I don't have any data to go back and review it. Or maybe my problem is I don't have a regular meeting. So I keep the whole team honest about what we're charging. And the final thing is that assumptions piece, which is what we're talking about. I want you to ask questions about, well, what am I assuming about myself, about the business, about what I do, about my clients that actually might be changing my behavior. And sometimes, to be honest, this might be the most important part of this whole process. So if I'm not getting things done, started quickly enough, maybe my assumption is that I need to send the terms of engagement and outline the fee and everything in there in order to get started. In other words, I've got to take a conversation and put it into a document and then send it out, which the client has to read and then get it back. Maybe the problem is that, the assumption is that I only get paid once the advice is done. Maybe you can challenge that and try and get paid before you did the advice. Or maybe it's the assumption that you have to do it all. And as a result, you're taking on board rather than telling them, here's what you need to get back to me. If you're always distracted, what might be the assumptions there? You might be assuming that things have to take time. Well, what if they didn't? What if you just assume that you worked in 50-minute blocks, 4 of them a day, and you got everything you needed done in 50 minutes and moved on? You've seen it work at the accelerators. Maybe your assumption there is you have to respond to emails. What if you challenged that and said, I don't respond to any emails? What would happen then? What if your assumption was, I should be available for my team? What if you changed that and said, I'm not going to be available unless I have time set aside to be available? Otherwise, they'll have to think for themselves. If your current business is profitable, your assumption might be that advice has a standard price, that $3,000 or $6,000. What if you challenged that and said, well, no, the price is whatever it costs me to be profitable, that my clients won't pay? Have you challenged that? Or you have to take what you're given. In other words, you have to basically take whatever revenue you receive, and that's it. The final thing is I want to talk about very quickly, because I know we're running short on time, is this idea that, you know what? We can put all this stuff in place. We can analyze what's happened. But the most the most important thing for you to change and get more productive is you have to see the specific practical changes you need to make. The step 1, the step 2, the step 3, not the big overlying piece, but the small bits. And you have to really want it. Elon talks about the fact that what really drives him is the purpose to reach Mars or, build the electric car or whatever the thing was. And when you're really clear about what you want and the small steps along the way to get it, what usually happens is you kind of do it. You head in that direction and you push through it even when the odds are in your favor. People who aren't clear on what they want, they tend to give up pretty soon. Now, the key thing to recognize here is that there is a trade-off. The harder the habit, the more you need to be motivated to do it. So the trade-off here is if you are going to make some big changes, they have to give you a result off the back of it that you desperately want. Because if you see that and you keep an eye on that result, you'll push harder. If you're not really clear about what you want, start at the low end. Start with really small habits. So let's manifest this. Whoops, what's going on there? Okay. So first, what I want you to do now is just take a moment to go, based on all of that, what are you going to change? What are you going to do differently? So for example, if you've decided that the thing that you want to change or the problem you want to solve is that you're not getting things started quickly, maybe the small changes are that you take first action on things in 24 hours, that all file notes from here on in are going to be via rev.com. Or, right here and now, you're going to book that session to map out the process with the team so they know how to support you. If your thing is, I'm always distracted, not enough focus, maybe go out now and book that one uncontactable day in your diary. Usually a 2-week period runway is what you need, but go and book that one day uncontactable and go and work out where you're going to do it. Make sure maybe it's not in the office. Hand over your inbox. Make a decision that you are going to do it. Might not happen today, but you've made the decision in your head that you're going to hand over inbox, or, make a decision right here and now that they're not always going to get you, and work out how to make that work. I'm more than happy to help you with that. If you've identified that your current business isn't profitable, make a decision. No more discounts. Maybe you're going to get the team to run off a sheet that shows the fees that your clients are paying. So then we can put it into a fee analysis and identify what they should actually be paying. And maybe your decision is, from now on, I'm going to start by charging the right fees with my new clients. So that will move me to a place where eventually I can move on comfortably to charge the clients who are engaged with me, and finally move over the ones that aren't engaged. So once you got that, though, final piece in the puzzle, put that desire thing in place. What's the payoff? If you identify that not getting things started quickly is costing you, well, what's the payoff for you personally? If this excites you, it's going to be off your desk into the hands of the team straight away, which means the weight doesn't fall on your shoulders. If that excites you, then get really clear that is the outcome that you're going to get. If you're always distracted and not enough focus, well, maybe your payoff is I'm going to get one day a week, quality time that I can work at my own pace without distraction, which is going to mean progress, which means I'm going to get there more quickly. And if your current business isn't profitable and you identify that the one thing you're going to do, what if you could work less hours and have for the same or more revenue? And by the way, if anybody's thinking about pricing transitions, I'll show you some of the numbers which indicate that they are, they're the best way of scaling a business, particularly if you are undercharging. So hopefully this has been useful. We've gone a little over, so let me just do a quick total recap. Hopefully you've done some of this. I'd love you, as I'm sort of going through this, type me in the box the number one thing that you've identified, your change you're going to make, and the payoff that you perceive it. I'd love to sort of connect with you and find out what's in there. Total recap. The best way to do this is to start with this idea of what's the intent. What do you know darn well that if you do more of that, it's going to move your business forward? Then getting really honest about the reality, what's actually happening instead of the thing you intend to happen. And then finally going, right, what's actually causing this? Be really honest. What's causing me to, deviate from the thing I know darn well is going to produce the best outcome? And this is where we just take total ownership and get clear. Once you've done that, you have got the framework to go, okay, if that's a problem, I need a solution. So what are the solutions? What are the things I can do? And by the way, if you've identified a problem and you don't know what the solution is, let me know. I'd love to help. I reckon I could produce a whole bunch of potential ways of solving problems. What's missing? If you identified, I know what the solution is, but I don't have the means or the ability or the knowledge or the know-how to make it happen. And then also really attack that idea that what might be going on in your head, what beliefs have you got bubbling around in the background that unknowingly are pushing you away from actually, taking action or putting in place the things. And then finally, just get really clear. What's the change you're going to make at the end of it all? Hopefully this is useful. Cool. Michelle's already put in the box. Focus, more delegation, and the do not disturb days. Great. Everybody else, what's the one thing? We're nearly there. Please let me know. Andrew, what's your one thing? Zoraida, perfect. Hand off to Carolyn quickly. Free me up. Yeah, Zoraida, the natural, particularly when you get busy, one of the natural inclinations is to pull stuff in. And I get it because it can be slower to hand things off. But if you don't do it now, you'll end up always stuck in that place. Nina, hardline calendar scheduling and blocking timeout. Love that. Nina, would love to hear. We've got 2 Ninas. Delegate carefully. Yeah. By the way, Elizabeth, there is a module on the member site called Delegation Mastery, which talks about 5 levels of delegation. And if you communicate those 5 levels to your team, level 5, I think, is do this exactly as I've told you. Do not deviate. I already know what I want. Level 1 is, hey, just do it. Let me know. Just don't stuff it up, and don't let me get surprised. And I think being clear to the team on the kind of delegation, it's also got a structure in there for communicating how you want things done and what you need out of it, which is key. Big kudos to Dan Sullivan's work in this space, which has been really, really useful. Great. Jeffrey, if you're still knocking around, would love to know what you've got from it. Cindy, same deal. Patricia, I don't think I said hello. Welcome. Hope you've got a lot out of this. Perfect. If you want to let me know what the one thing that you've got from this, that'd be good. And if there's one thing you need, if you're sitting there going, I don't know the solution to this problem, or what might be an assumption that's holding me back, or, Stu, I'm missing this thing, then I'd love to let you know, because the productivity section of the members site, as well as the leveraging support, has got some really great elements in there around scheduling, around handing things off and whatnot. Patricia Voxer. Yeah, Voxer's a game changer, as well as Rev for file notes. I think if you ask Jeff about Rev, he went from having a backlog to me, just get cracking. Isolate yourself, right? I think it's the main thing. So I wanted to share one more Elon moment, because you know what? All of this productivity, in actual fact, there's a motivator for it. Who would have known? It's actually not about rockets. It's not about changing the world. Turns out Elon Musk, he's pretty clear on what he wants. He's trying to get through the rocket stuff so he can genetically engineer cat girls. Anyway, interesting. Elon's an interesting dude, and he posts some weird stuff on Twitter from time to time. But hey, I hope this has been useful. I really wanted to run this because so many of you are working really, really, really hard and doing great work for clients. But one of the challenges right now is we're in an environment where more and more is being asked of you. A lot of it just blows me away in how odd counterproductive it is. But there is really great work to be done. Like I say it every time. I know, cat girls, who would have thought? That we are in the middle of a financial obesity crisis, whether we're talking about, people being encouraged to do things which aren't in their best interest, whether we talk about consumption, whether we talk about, crazy house prices and all the rest of it. But ultimately, people need help with their money. What's becoming really clear is people are less capable of making smart choices than ever before. We have challenges to get there in terms of the way that we engage with clients, the way we attract people into our world. We've got reputational issues, which for most of you have got nothing to do with the way you operate. We've got challenges in terms of making sure our business models can service more clients. But most of all, I think at the top of that, freeing you up to do great work and to build a business that can support what you do and to work with a team is increasingly important. So the balance between sort of managing today, but also building tomorrow, I think is a key thing to get done. And hopefully this has given you a run through as to how a man who clearly has nailed part of this gets more done probably in a day than most of us do in a week. And hopefully we've leveraged a bit of this. Hey, I'm going to stick around if anybody's got any questions, but otherwise would love to know what's been the most useful part of today for you personally. And of course, if there's something you need help with, see you, Elizabeth. Speak to you later. If there's something you need help with, I'm more than happy to help. Isolation, Zoraida. Yeah. Isolation is vital. Jeffrey, I think we have one of our next sprint projects, Taskbreaker. As we grow, client tasks and managing tasks and workflow monitoring is in need of a system. There's a load of different ways you can do this, Jeffrey. I've looked at a whole bunch of different workflow tools. I get that people want to use their own personal, like Xplan and whatnot. I still think Teamwork is one of the best workflow management systems there is. It's a project management tool. There is a module on it. It's called Managing Workflow Using Teamwork. I think it'll be under Build Systems. Even if you want to continue using Xplan, it will give you a good idea of how to manage workflow. And I think there's also a blog under that module, which is called the Zero Dark 30 Workflow System, which talks about the fact that the way that businesses use workflow in terms of everybody in there, everybody managing tasks is flawed. And the way we need to start using it is more like the way that Navy SEALs are managed on the ground. You've got your on-the-ground people who are responsible for doing the work, and then you've got your sort of control room people who are responsible for managing the workflow. And I think it's really important to recognize that. Nina, 3 critical tasks to start the day. Nina B, we've got Nina K and Nina B. Yeah, there's such a good habit to get into. And it means that you start things off by knowing what's important. And for me personally, if I do the hard stuff, the chewing glass tasks, as opposed to, I can knock that off quickly. It really works. I also think everything I've read about productivity from Michael Hyatt and Elon and a whole bunch of other people, to-do lists are only really effective when they go in your calendar, because otherwise they don't have a physical manifestation in terms of time. If you're blocking out, some would say that you only should have 3 significant tasks that you're working through a day. Some people say 1. But if you're trying to fit in, the least productive days are the one where look at my calendar and I've got, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 different blocks of time. Because again, that indicates to me that I'm not batching well enough and I'm not prioritized. Michelle says not sitting at my computer for the first 30 minutes to an hour. Yeah, I think I read somewhere that Jerry Harvey of Harvey Norman doesn't have a computer in his office. Again, looking at the habits of really productive people is very useful. And from memory, the last time I saw a photo of Elon Musk's desk, I don't think he has a computer as the central piece of his desk. So there is a big argument for having a part of your office or part of where you work which actually isn't central to the computer. Right next to here, I've got a desk with a big sheet of IKEA paper where I try to draw out all of our automations and all of our campaigns, and before I actually sit anywhere near a computer. And every time I lapse out of that habit, I get in trouble. So thank you very much to everybody for being part of this. I hope you've got something out of it. If there is something that you're planning on putting in place, I would love you to jump onto the Facebook group and just put it in the comments. And specifically that this is the change I'm going to make, and this is the outcome I'm going to get out of the back of it. If after this webinar comes off, you sort of realize that, I need some help with this. I need a solution for scheduling. I need a solution for mapping out processes. I need a solution for running team meetings better. I need a solution for delegating better. Please let me know, because there is content on the member site that can help you. There are templates around handing off, around dictated file notes, a whole bunch of stuff. But most of all, I hope you've got something out of it. I hope you found at least the ability to move towards freeing up 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 hours a week. And if you haven't, let me know, because it might be time to do an activity audit. But anyway, have a great Friday. I will speak to you all very, very soon. And as I said, if you need anything, give me a shout. Otherwise, thanks, Patricia, and also Cindy and Nina B. Hope you don't mind me calling you Nina B for joining us the first time. Michelle, always fantastic to see you. Okay, Zoraida, you enjoy your compliance study exam. Best of luck with it. I hope you get a flying pass. Brett, man, really good for you to join us, and Andrew, you too, man. I'd really love to know how you're going with yours, because it seems to be a lot going on in your world. Anyway, have a great weekend. I will speak to you all soon, and take care.